Okay, if you say there is a free and fair election, then without an iota of doubt, I say Imran Khan is the next Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Interesting.
So my prediction is that the military establishment wins the fight. Imran Khan wins the movie.
Islam will continue to be triumphant until there have been 12 Khulafa, all of them from Al-Quraysh.
The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever.
This is my brother, my executor, and my successor among you, so listen to him and obey.
My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting.
Whoso obeys me obeys God. Whoever disobeys me disobeys God. Whoever disobeys my commander disobeys me.
The Lord said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession.
Two systems of government, two visions for life on earth. Whichever is true changes everything. This is Christ and Khulafa.
So for context here, a few days ago, 10 days before the election in Pakistan, Imran Khan, the main sort of opposition member who was running to be prime minister again, was previously prime minister, was arrested and put in jail, and now we're 3-4 days away from the election now.
Yes, we are. 4 days away.
So the question we have for you then is, how do we get here in the first place? What led Pakistan up to this point?
Wait, can we introduce our guest? Who are you?
Well, I am Sharjeel, and I'm from Pakistan originally, and I have very keen interest in politics and overall the history of Pakistan as well.
Okay.
So that's who I am. And let me correct you here. Imran Khan is under arrest for last 3 or so months. He was sentenced now for a total of 31 years imprisonment.
Wow.
So that is what's going on the ground. But let me take you back in the history. What happened? Since independence, Pakistan gained its independence from Britain in 1947 and from India too. Since then, the founding father of Pakistan, his name was Muhammad Ali Jinnah, right? He followed the democracy. His ideas were, if we hear his sermon, if he hear his addresses to the nation, he wanted a place where everybody's free to go to mosques and everybody's free to go to churches, and he wanted a country, Islamic country, where there is a freedom for everyone. That was his stance to begin with, but unfortunately he died right after the independence of Pakistan. Then what happened in the aftermath is somehow Pakistan military became so powerful over the years that it ruled Pakistan more than what democratic rulers have been ruling Pakistan. So Pakistan was under dictatorship for more than 35 odd years in different span of times, right? From 65, Ayub Khan coming in, and then Ziaul Haq was another dictator, and then Musharraf, that you guys may have heard of. Musharraf was another dictator. But the element that was there that most of audience don't know, that military was always there. The establishment was always there at the back. You know, the kingmakers, you can call it. The Pakistani politics kings makers are Pakistan establishment, that is Pakistan army. So whoever comes into parliament comes with the aid of the establishment. And Imran Khan was also a product of establishment, to be honest, when he came into power in last election 2018. Yes.
So let's zoom in a little bit on the military establishment. So let's steelman them for a second here, because obviously Pakistan is a country that has a strong military in the region.
Right.
Why does Pakistan need a strong military?
Well, there are many layers to it. First of all, we have our biggest rival right next to us, India, which is powerful, strong, and 5 or 6 times bigger than Pakistan. And to to match with the power of India, Pakistan has to invest a lot in its military capacities. And that's how military influence got stronger and stronger. And you guys know about Kashmir issue. So Kashmir issue was the core between India and Pakistan, and that led to more investment in military and defense, and that led to military taking over Pakistan indefinitely.
Sure. So, which countries does Pakistan border here? We have.
Okay, on the east we have India. It's a big border. And then on the northern side there is a small patch connecting us with China. And on the western front we have Afghanistan. On southwest we have Iran, and in the south we have just the Arabian Sea.
Yeah, so I can understand somebody who lives there would want to have a strong military.
Yes.
Right. It's not like paranoid to want to have an able fighting force at that point, right? So
Right.
we can at least understand why Pakistan having a military is important,
Right.
and also why the military themselves are going to see themselves as important as well.
Yeah, no, this is undeniable fact that Pakistan needed, for the survival of Pakistan, a military was needed. And that was the loophole. You know, when you gain power, and I'm going to give you a reference of 1965 war between India and Pakistan, where because of the support of common people who stood for the army, right, and we were able to repel 4 times bigger army than us, India. And that was a successful, it was a stalemate between Pakistan and India, no clear win there. But what army saw, that there is an immense support from the people to the army, and that created a big power gap. That's like, why don't we take up the power and decide for the future of Pakistan? Because we are the most honest, we are the most patriotic people, we are trained so. That's why we are in the better position to decide for the better Pakistan.
Can you explain how corruption has, kind of played into everything that you were talking about?
I think when there is unchecked power, right, then there is a recipe for corruption, right? So what military has done over years, they gained so much power and then army is not an institute that is answerable to public, right? So if an elected person goes into parliament, then after 5 years coming back to the people, then he is accountable. People are going to ask what you have done in those 5 years for us, right? On the other hand, military does not have that kind of behavior or attitude, right? So they have this clear chit of whatever they want to do, and nobody's going to ask a question. And that's what happened exactly to this day. Not a single general in Pakistan is put under the check of the law.
Right. So no checks and balances.
No,
right?
on military, no. They do their internal audit and stuff, but there is always a process that they kind of like favor them, until there is the mutiny thing or something like that.
So this is interesting to me, because what we're starting to look at here is a layered thing, right? Pakistan's military are necessary. They've saved the country on more than one occasion, and they can rightly be considered heroes to the Pakistani people to some capacity.
Right.
But then when you have that kind of power and reputation without any balances on it, then it can warp you into something you're not supposed to be.
Right.
Well, it also makes it easier for a strong man to step in, right? Like military leaders can command a lot of loyalty from their troops. So it's a much smaller segment of the population you have to win over.
Right.
Right? Like you don't have to win over everybody in all these districts and, do an election thing when you're focused on, how many troops are loyal to me and how can I use that to take power?
Right.
Yeah,
and one point that is very important in terms of what is coming in this election, why I consider this election to be most vital election in the history of Pakistan.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So the current situation, just from some of the articles that I was looking at, particularly with the arrest of Imran Khan, it's kind of like made the whole thing, just blow up. Right. Like it looks very unstable from the outside. When I was growing up, I remember, hearing about elections in India and Pakistan and kind of judging them through the same lens, right? Like, it's just crazy and it's unstable, and people get assassinated and
Right.
that kind of thing. So so how does that play out in the now, right? Like everything we talked about, how does that play out in the now in what we're going through currently in Pakistan?
So before we kind of dive right into that, for those people who are not familiar with who Imran Khan is, right?
Important.
It's
Yes.
it's an interesting story because my
Sure.
dad actually knew Imran Khan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, because he was a cricket guy, right?
Yeah. So
yeah.
my dad was a sports editor for the Daily Telegraph, and Imran Khan used to write stories for the Daily Telegraph. So my dad used to kind of correspond with him on the phone
So
and
wild.
talk about cricket.
Okay.
So now this dude my dad used to talk about cricket
Yes.
with is now ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan and seems to be the victim of some large conspiracy by the Pakistani state. So what the heck happened? How did a cricketer go from a cricketer to the enemy of the state?
Okay, that's a long story, but in a nutshell, Imran Khan emerged as a hero of Pakistan. Cricket is followed as a religion in Pakistan, and so is in India, right? Cricket is so close to Pakistanis, so is mine. And anyone who wins a World Cup for Pakistan becomes a hero. And not to say just Imran Khan's winning was a key, but his own personality was also a big part. He was Pashtun, and on top of that, he established cancer hospital in Pakistan. Right, that was a big achievement on his front, and then he started doing politics. He jumped into politics to help people, and he established a political party called the Tehreek-e-Insaf in '96 or '97 particularly, and then it went on and on. But he came to limelight in 2011 when, out of nowhere, he was able to gather around 1 million people in Lahore, right, and that every gurus of politics started noticing that another third power. Before that, only PMLN, Nawaz Sharif, and the People's Party of Benazir Bhutto, as were two big names in Pakistani politics,
Right.
were two main parties contesting each other. But with the third entry was a big, and people started to blame establishment for bringing this third entity in, which was rightly so, actually. Not to say that complete establishment was completely behind Imran Khan, but there was a sentiment to it. So that's how Imran Khan become a biggest player in Pakistani politics. Yeah.
It's
So-
like Kevin Bacon. It's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's like you're like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
Like 7 degrees of Imran Khan.
All right, so let's go back to your question now of the sort of situation we're in now.
Yeah,
And
like tell us what happened first of all, because some of us might not know like exactly how the situation unfolded.
Okay, so
his father was exiled from Afghanistan by the Shah, and since then he's checked out of regional
No,
politics.
the kid, it's he kept it all under tight wraps. Like he didn't even talk about it really.
Yeah.
I had to find out about it from him much later on in his life, and not when I was young. Or through others.
yeah, actually, if I look into Pakistani politics at this point, what it looks like that it is for the first time in history of Pakistan, not to say Zulfikar Ali Bhutto back in 70s stood against army, but that time, there was less means of communication, social media wasn't there, so it was really easy to control media, right? So he was persecuted, he was hanged to death, and his chapter was over. But now, since people are so aware through social media, there is a ban on Pakistan, the Tehreek-e-Insaf, the party of Imran Khan, in terms of like they cannot do their political rallies. There is unlawful arrests and a lot of stuff going on against him because military don't want Imran Khan back in the power. What happened? You may be asking what exactly happened, right? He was in power, he was in office with the help of establishment. But Imran Khan is a person, we have to understand that he has his own nature. If he is in the office, he wants his dominance to be felt, right? If a person come in and telling Imran Khan to do such things, he's not simply going to say, yes, I'm going to do it. going to say, I have my own say in it. And let me take you back to Russia-Ukraine war. Now you'll be wondering what it has to do with it, right? Pakistan is a military ally of the United States. And the United States particularly was not happy Imran Khan's visit to Russia. And they shared their concern, allegedly, they shared their concerns with Pakistan military that we don't want to see this guy in the office. And there was a clean chit in terms of like what the narrative is building in Pakistan. I'm not saying what is true and what's not true. What the nation is building upon is that fact that Imran Khan was removed with the help of American politics or the government, and he was thrown out with the help of military, right? So military conspired against him and threw him out of the office through legal processes. Not to say that they just kind of like
Had a
marched.
coup.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a coup.
No, it wasn't coup. It was no confidence motion in the parliament against him.
Okay.
And they bribed different politicians from his party and, to vote against him. And that's how he was removed of the office.
Okay.
And to less of their expectation, because at that time, Pakistan was going through a bad inflation time, because that was the time after post-COVID time, right?
Sure.
And with that, the establishment thought that people will be really, really happy about it, that they removed a person who was not performing well. But it turned out the opposite. As soon as he was removed, people took on the streets. Everybody was protesting against his removal. And that's where the rift started. And because Imran Khan took a stance and wasn't backing down, and military, of course, they don't want to give up on their powers, right? So the rift became bigger and bigger, and it came to a point where now Imran Khan is not backing down, and of course military don't want to back down. On the other side, the politicians in Pakistan know that they cannot survive without establishment. If they go against establishment, that's right. Nawaz Sharif tried, Benazir tried, all the politicians tried, but they were not good leaders. That's why they failed. And now all the other politicians in Pakistan are sitting in the pockets of establishment. The only person that is standing against them is Imran Khan at this point. So that's why it's really important for the people of Pakistan to decide whether they want a democratic country where their choice, the people that they elect go in the office.
So my immediate question then is this vote that happens in 4 days. Is it even possible for Imran Khan to win that vote? Like, is Pakistan's elections easy to rig? Are they difficult to rig? Is there like how is that going to work?
Is there a loophole? Like,
yes, I think there are many speculations going on within Pakistan as well that these elections can be rigged. But there is a pre-poll rigging and there is election day rigging, right? There are many different ways. Pre-poll rigging is like Imran Khan is barred of his political symbol that was a cricket bat. And there was all these sentences are the product that they don't want him to participate in election, neither they want their party. So all his contestants are participating on independent science, right? So with that scenario, yeah, they tried whatever they could to put Imran Khan's party at the back, and that we consider a pre-poll rigging, right? Now the next step is, I don't know how it's going to look, but there is that army or establishment will try its best to not let people of Pakistan decide what they want. But there is a saying in Pakistan, it's a common saying, that if the voters turnout is more than 60%, then there is not a lot that army can do. Then Imran Khan victory is inevitable if the turnout is more than 60%.
interesting.
And then I suppose they have to release him from jail at that point. What happens if he wins in jail, in prison?
Can he pardon himself?
No, this is the ugliest part of Pakistani politics. So the law in Pakistan is with establishment, right? So what will happen in the aftermath if Imran Khan's party wins? His people gonna elect somebody as a prime minister, which will be in the support of Imran Khan, and then all those charges will be dropped out, and he will come and contest an election and win, and come back to the parliament and become the prime minister. That's the route. What it
That's the
looks
formula.
like. Yeah.
Makes for damn good television.
So, I mean, I understand that there's like a certain stability, even in the midst of instability to Pakistani politics, right? But are we looking at like a possible revolution? Would it go that far, or?
I think this election can be a milestone in the history of Pakistani politics. It can go either way. Either you can see a direct dictatorship, rule military taking over Pakistan and saying all that. Pakistan is, at this point, I don't consider Pakistan a democratic country. That is a dictatorship, but behind the doors, right? So like military is controlling politics from a long time. Sometimes they're up front, sometimes at their back. But at this point, if Imran Khan wins, there is highly likely, and most of the people like me are hoping that he will put those establishment, or you can't say military, back into the barracks. Tell them that, hey, this is where you belong and this is where you stay. We, as Pakistanis, so Imran Khan we all love our army. Army is vital to our survival.
Sure.
But we don't want them in our politics. We don't want them in the parliament. And that's what we want as Pakistanis, that somehow we will get rid of those, and that will set Pakistan on the path of a democratic process. And you go through democracy, then you bring the good changes in Pakistan. Under dictatorship, you cannot bring those good changes. If it could be, then it's Pakistan is independent for 75 years. It could have brought some fruit to this day. But as you see, what Pakistan is going through, and I think I blame all these military dictatorship for now.
So basically, the question whether Pakistan is a democracy or dictatorship will have more clarity in the coming days, weeks, and months, depending on how this election goes.
Right, exactly. So that's why these elections are really, really important. And I have pretty keen interest personally these elections. I want to see the civil democracy or civil supremacy in Pakistani parliament than boots ruling the opinion.
This is like kind of maybe like a newbie question, right? But how much does Islam influence Pakistani politics, right? So, for instance, in Turkey, okay, the prime minister, the very least shows, he's moving towards Islam as a means to consolidate his power.
Right.
So, how does that play into this situation?
Yeah. So Pakistan is an Islamic country.
Sure.
And one of the most, I won't use the radical word, but one of the most conservative Muslims in the world, right?
Yeah.
So any prime minister, any person who gains popularity in Pakistan has to be from either the middle or the right. It cannot be leaning to the left. So yes, the Islam plays a really, really big part in Pakistani politics. I mean, of course, Imran Khan was blamed to be a Jewish lobbyer, a person, because his ex-wife, Jemima Goldsmith, was a Jew from a Jewish family, right? Yeah, so so there was a lot to blame on him, but the way he came off and spoke in UN General Assembly about Islamophobia and all those things. So that made him popular too, because he's standing on this ground that we want to establish Islamic Caliphate system within democracy, right? Not implementing like Sharia law straight up and saying, this is now how it works, but like establishment of the state of Medina. That's what his narrative is generally. Okay.
So it seems like it's less like Erdogan then. In that Erdogan was somebody, Turkey was a very sort of secular place.
Right.
And Erdogan has kind of like stirred up this sort of Islamic sentiment in order to gain more power. Where it seems more like Imran Khan has to speak in those ways in order to have any semblance of influence or power at all.
Relevance, right?
Yes.
Like you have to do that to be relevant.
Yeah, and he's kind of like narrowing down or like soothing up this extra conservative sentiment that, okay, we don't want that type of law. We still remains within the bound of democracy and can still be part of Islamic system. And that attracted by the people in Pakistan. That was attractive to people of Pakistan. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, that being said about the current situation, I have like one last question. Who do you think's gonna win?
Oh, that's
Like let's play pick'em, right? Like when you can go on like like we have our bracket, okay? Like the NCAA and the NFL and all this other stuff, and every playoff you have like a bracket, you know what I mean? And we're down to the final, bracket. Like he made it onto the ballot, I guess, or whatever.
right.
How do you think this plays out?
Well, here you can say I'm a little biased here, right? I really support Imran Khan personally, but at the same time, the ground reality says, the people that I'm talking to, the people that are involved in politics, there is, as I said, there is a big chance that this election would be won by Imran Khan if the voters turnout is more than 60%, which never happened in the history of Pakistan. Right? The voters turn out more than 60%, then there is less chance of rigging. Okay, if you say there is a free and fair election, then without an iota of doubt, I say Imran Khan is the next Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Interesting.
So my prediction is that the military establishment wins the fight. Imran Khan wins the movie, kind of like Rocky Balboa.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good analogy.
That's what on the ground, because nobody has ever defeated establishment yet. So that's a big challenge,
Right.
So maybe the ground says no, because everything is in control of establishment at this point.
I'm not drawing a connection to the two people per se. They're very different, but like you can kind of see a similar situation unfolding here in the States, right? Like regardless of whether or not you're for or Trump, or against Trump, there's certainly like a push to keep him off a ballot, and then there's his supporters certainly want him on a ballot, right? And there's like this, like there's just investigations in every state, and everyone's kind of trying to stop him for their own reasons, whether they're legitimate or not, to do that. So it's kind of interesting to watch. Like it's not just us, right? Like it's not just the USA. It's happening in other places too.
Right.
So I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I believe in Jesus. Explain to me, like, why do you think this matters? So both of you, you know what I mean? Like we've heard a lot, about the situation and how it's played out. But I'm a believer here in the States, right? How do I interpret it through the Bible? Like, how do I respond as a Christian?
So I think, first of all, we have to realize that while the Christian drive is primarily about transformation of individual souls from the inside out, the Bible still cares about the nations. It speaks about them a lot.
Yep.
Jesus says in Matthew 28, make disciples of all the nations. And like in Isaiah, it talks about the nations wait for the law of the Messiah.
Right.
In Revelation, it talks about there's these trees grow from next to the river of life, and its leaves are for the healing of the nations.
Right.
And if you look through the book of Acts, you see time and time again that not only are people going to population centers and appealing to individuals to repent, trust in Jesus, be transformed, they're also taking a swing for the governing authorities as well. Meaning that, ideally, what we want to see is every nation thriving under God's guidance, right? And means we should have something to say about the situation in Pakistan as well as Christians.
Right.
It's not just, hey, know Jesus yourself and good luck with everything.
Right.
Jesus has something to say about everything in one way, shape, or form.
I recently met with a friend who was trying to coordinate a missions trip in Pakistan, and he's kind of like the leader of a big organization that does this kind of thing. And his take on the Christians in Pakistan was that they're just defeated, right? Like he doesn't see them like empowered in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So, talk about that for a second.
But not for too long, because we did an episode on this, if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
And if you want to hear this, you can check out, we'll link
we did.
that video in the description and the sort of end cards in the video of, why Christians are persecuted in Pakistan, what that actually looks like.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Just
in a nutshell,
the
the Pakistan is a polarized society, right? And religion plays a big part. There is less tolerance, and the example of tolerance, there is not enough tolerance between Muslim sects. Shias hate Sunnis, Sunnis hate Brahmins, and all the other sects that involve. How can you imagine or think that they will respect some other religion there? Let alone Christianity, or they had special hat towards Judaism or Jews particularly. So yeah, Christians are living under persecution. Yes, that is true.
Okay, so the reason why I ask is because we're talking about this idea that essentially at the beginning sounds like Pakistan is founded as a pluralistic state, right?
Right.
Like you can express your religious views
Exactly.
in an Islamic state.
Yes, sir.
But, the Bible, right, gives us like a prescription on how to live in states that aren't like that. So it doesn't sound like Pakistan's like that right now, particularly for Christians. But in Romans 13, it says, let every person submit himself to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those that exist are put in place by God. So whoever opposes the authority has resisted God's direction, and those who have resisted will bring judgment on themselves. For leaders cause no fear for good behavior, but for bad. Now, if you do not want to fear authority and do what is good, you will get his approval, for he is God's servant for you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not carry the sword for no reason. For he is God's servant and avenger who inflicts punishment on the evildoer. And then it goes on to talk about it's necessary for us as Christians to be submitted to a government, pay your taxes, serve the state diligently. So what do you think about that, James? Because in this situation, that's how I try to live here in the States, right? Like that's how I try to, respect, even if I don't agree, right? Like if I don't agree policy-wise, I have a mandate from God on how to behave. So how do you think that applies to this?
Well, I think it really depends who you're talking to, right? Because for the average Pakistani citizen, it means they should live their life in subjection to a certain extent to whatever government comes out of this. Meaning that, while this may be a bad this may end in a bad situation, it's, from a biblical perspective, it's certainly better than anarchy. Right? It's better to have a military dictatorship in charge of Pakistan than it is to have no government in Pakistan.
Right, agreed. And I have a question too, James. Sorry to interrupt you there. What advice would a Christian living in the United States under democracy, one of the finest democracies in the world, to name it, how you would advise, and you as well, Ibars, to Pakistanis, not particularly to Christians, but overall Pakistanis. What is your piece of advice to them?
Yeah, so basically it breaks down like this, right? So first is you have to recognize the government is there for a reason, as frustrating as it may be. That's very different from trusting the government. Like whatever you can do to obey how you need to obey, but also build in a way that doesn't depend on the government as well. Like maybe build your wealth in a way that's not that the government can't suddenly take it all in one go as well. Maybe you have a bank account in a different country. Maybe you have investments somewhere else, like Dubai or something. So the government comes for you. You can kind of like, you can get out and build somewhere secure, right?
Right.
There are, hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis living outside of Pakistan, thriving somewhere. And I think it's important that those people continue to do that without losing sight of their hopes for their home country.
Right.
So often with the early Christians, what would happen is they'd get persecuted in one place, they'd have to go somewhere else, and they would build. And the things they build outside of that would be transformative to, what's back in their home country.
Right.
So, in fact, that's why America was built in the first place. You had British Reformed Christians who were sick of living under this oppressive monarchy with their own kind of imposed state religion, and they had inability to practice how they wanted.
Right.
But they initially just moved to like the Netherlands, but they realized that they stayed there, they just assimilate into the culture, and they'd lose their culture, which they didn't want to do, because culture is a gift from God. Every culture is. So they then moved to the United States. Well, no, they moved to what is now the United States.
New World.
The New World, right? And built,
I
colonies.
mean, they
there.
didn't come through Ellis Island and see the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah. So building here, like America, has influenced England in massive ways.
Right.
Right, in enormous ways because of going and building somewhere else, right? So even think of Imran Khan, right? He goes and is successful in his career, lives in England for a while, makes some status and reputation for himself, and is able to go back and make a difference.
Right.
No matter how much or little difference he's,
Oh, no, he made a big difference.
Yeah, made a big difference,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So the most important thing in this is not the result of this election. From a biblical perspective, it's your own personal integrity.
Right.
You be the change that you want to see in Pakistan. So if you hate Pakistan's corruption, don't take any bribes. Don't give any bribes.
Right.
Work honestly. If you don't like the way the government's controlling everybody, make sure, as the husband of your wife and the father of your family, you're using persuasion, not coercion, to control the world around you. Right.
Right.
That you're kind to people. That you are honest, that you are hardworking, and if you embody those things, at some point, that can impact the culture back in Pakistan as well.
That's a beautiful message, Jay. I think that's what Pakistan at this point need, because most of the time what's happening in Pakistan is they're trying to improve others. So why you're not being better, why you're not doing this, our government is corrupt. But no, you are yourself corrupt. So work on yourself. But I want your input in that too, right?
So I have two things to say, because in Turkish politics, for instance, and many other places throughout the Middle East, Central Asia, politics revolve around blame. Right? Like they blame the United States. In this situation, they were blaming like the Jewish wife, right? This is like
you're a stupid argument.
Right. Like everyone looks at it's easier to blame and find a straw man, they call it, right? Like, this is the real problem. It's not us. It's the Jews. It's the United States.
We're blaming the true president of Pakistan, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right. You know what I mean? And I'm not exonerating the United States from that. I mean, every country does it, and it's easy to want to find fault in others, right? So what you were talking about was, if you're finding fault in others, make sure you're not doing it yourself.
Right.
Okay. So when you catch yourself blaming somebody, right, like let that be a flag to you that that's not how any problems get fixed.
Right.
Right? Like finding somebody to blame for all of your problems turns you into a victim perpetually. And as a victim, there's always, like, if you embrace victimhood instead of, like I'm going to change, I'm going to grow, we're going to fix this situation. We're going to apply the things that James was talking about, right? Like we want to see reform,
right,
in the face of corruption. You have to remove blame from the situation. You have to take ownership of the situation,
right,
first of all. Second of all, the other thing I would say is I think, like, for instance, when I look at, United States politics or international politics, like in a place like Iran or something like that, I lose hope, right? Because, my father was chased out by a dictator, and then when it looked like he could go back home, the Soviets came in, so the communists came in and just murdered a ton of people and imposed their will. And then they left, and it looked like he could go back home, right? And then the Taliban came in, and each one was successively worse.
Worse,
right? It was like successively more oppressive, and it's easy to lose hope.
Right.
I understand that Pakistan, majority of people are Muslims, but as a Christian, the way that I live my life is trying to find hope.
Right.
Okay, in these situations, and I turn to God for that hope, because I realize that what the Bible says is that we are aliens and temporary residents, right? Like, we are only here as sojourners. We are passing through this life, and honestly, the way that the Bible sets up everything is we as Christians live under a theocracy. It doesn't play out in the politics around us, right? But we have a king, and we serve our king, right? Our king is Jesus, and we are waiting for him to return, and we put hope in the fact that he was resurrected from the dead, and all of these things. Now, to your average Pakistani, that might be like, well, I don't believe that. But I think there's something to it, because if we can take ourselves out of the situation, right, and say, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to try and live for God, right? I'm going to try and apply living for God into my life, and not look at politics as the end all be all, right? Because they're not.
Right.
Political parties rise and fall, empires rise and fall. Like
Exactly.
the Roman Empire is gone.
Oh, yeah.
They're around forever. The Ottomans are gone. They were around forever. The caliphates are gone.
Right.
Right. Maybe, and they might come back, and who knows what comes back. Right.
Right.
But I think it's important to focus on where you're going to find your hope.
Right.
Right. And as a Christian, I find my hope in Christ.
Right. And also, I recall one verse from the Bible that before you remove speck from the other's eye, remove the plank from your own eye, right?
Right.
And that's the principle that
It's a
I
very
think,
popular verse. Yeah.
that the Pakistanis should be thinking of,
Right.
and applying this in their lives to make their life. That's the only way out. No one is coming to rescue them from the outside. No, America is not jumping in, or Britain is not jumping in, or Middle East. They have to stand for themselves. And once they realize that, I think situation on the ground will look far better.
Yeah. So I'd say the twofold, right? One is self-responsibility. I agree, but also the biblical message is that there is help for that, right? But it's not in the form of earthly political leader, right? Everybody wants that, but that's not really where the help is coming from. But if you look at the life of Jesus, Jesus too is somebody who the establishment is freaked out by him.
Right.
Right. They
Just
want
trying
him
to silence
gone.
him. Right. Get him out of here.
Yeah.
So what do? They arrest him on trumped-up charges. They imprison him, and then they execute him. And then he raises from the dead, which means as Christians, we're not waiting for some political figure to come save us. That figure has already come, and he gives us the power in his resurrection through sending the Holy Spirit for us to face any circumstances, whether that's jail or imprisonment or anything. Because here's the kicker now. Now that he's been through that, our leader cannot be killed. Our leader cannot be arrested. Our leader cannot be silenced. And you can put as many of us in jail as you want.
That's right.
But what God is doing in the world is unstoppable. And that means we never lose hope.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good place to land.
Well, guys, thank you for watching another episode of Christ and Caliphate. We'll be back next time.